Hi, this is Greg Herter. I want to welcome you back to the second video of this three-part video series on how to make 2016 your best year ever. In this video, I'm going to share with you some very practical things that you need to put into place in order to achieve the goals you have set for 2016. Now, failure to think about some of these simple but critically important things are why most people fail to accomplish the goals they know they're actually capable of achieving. In the first video, I shared with you there were three key questions to ask before you could start the goal setting process. Those questions will serve as the starting point for making this your best year ever. If you have not watched that first video or completed the vows clarification worksheet, please go back and watch it now. Complete the worksheet. You are only cheating yourself if you fail to do so. If you're looking for shortcuts, go ahead and stop watching this video now because it won't help. I don't have any shortcuts or magic pills. What I do have is some information that has made a huge difference in my life and the lives of many people I have shared this information with. But you have to be willing to take action on the information. If you really want to get value from it, if you want to make sure that 2016 is your best year ever. The three questions in the first video are designed to make you think about your life from a big picture perspective. In this second video, we're now going to bring that big picture view down to a more practical level that makes it easier for you to take action on and motivate you when things are a little tough. But before we move on, I want to really thank you. If you left a comment after that first video, or if you shared it on social media, I really appreciate all the feedback. I'm so grateful for those people that posted comments, especially the value, the inspiration. Those are the things that truly drive me to share this information because I see what a huge difference it's making in people's lives. And if you shared it, I want you to know the people that commented about it, that we're so glad people shared it with them, you're making a huge difference. So without anything else, let's go to work. What's the next step to ensuring that 2016 truly is your best year ever? Now, I want you to keep the answers to the three key questions from the last video handy. You're going to use them and you're going to think about them as we go through this video. Now, the next thing I want you to do is click the link here on the video somewhere, I think it's below it or around here somewhere, to download a copy of what I call the Wheel of Life. This is just a little exercise sheet that you want to do, and you can print out a couple of copies so you can write on them. Now, that's right, I want you to pause the video, download the form, print out a couple of copies. Now, don't come up with any excuses for not doing this. Now, if you're watching this on your mobile phone and you don't have a printer handy, don't let little unimportant details get in your way. Grab a piece of paper. Draw a big circle on it. Now, it doesn't have to be a perfect circle. I want you to know that. It can just be a circle. Then draw a line that divides the circle in half horizontally. Now do the same vertically. So now you have a circle with 4 quarters in it. And now, what I want you to do is now draw a line through the circle, splitting each quarter, so that now you have 8 segments in your wheel. See, it wasn't that hard, and you didn't even need a printer. You have to learn to move beyond obstacles, like not having a printer handy. Now, if you don't have your balance wheel in front of you, stop the video, print one out, or make one. Right now, stop. All right, now that you have your balance wheel in front of you, we're going to use this wheel as a metaphor for your life. Step 1, is to look at each segment on the wheel of your life and give yourself a rating on where you think you are for that particular area of your life, using a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being, the very center and being not very good. 10 being all the way out, perfection, if you could. Now, what I want you to do is sort of give yourself a rating in each one, and I actually want you to color in that wheel below it. Use your pen, your pencil, doesn't matter. And the reason you want to color it in is so you can visually see how your wheel is shaped. Now, you're only going to learn from this exercise if you're totally honest with yourself and if you completely do it the way I'm suggesting. Now, let me give you a little suggestion here. If you're doing this exercise with your spouse or significant other, your kids, and I highly recommend that you actually do this as a family, what I want you to do is make sure that each of you fill out a separate balance wheel for your life. Now, if your spouse or kids feel comfortable sharing theirs with you, that's great. But here's my concern. If they show you their wheel, no matter what you think of their wheel, don't tell them that they've rated themselves too high or too low in any particular segment. That's never productive, especially unless they've asked you for their specific feedback about the rating scale. It's much better just to look at it. Now, this is how they rate themselves. And I want you to be totally honest with yourself when you're doing this. If you think about an area where you really believe you're a perfect 10, fill it in. Now, I don't have any areas on my wheel that I think I'm a perfect 10, but if you have an area, fill it in. And if you're only a 1 in some area, just color in that little tiny area and just fill in each segment. So look at the areas of your life. Physically, how are you doing? How's your health? Your blood pressure? Your cholesterol. People say, well, Greg, I don't know what my cholesterol is. Well, that's not a good thing. You need to know, where you are health-wise. In your career, how are you doing? Now, career is different than financially. On financially, how well are you progressing to becoming financially independent so that you can live without working? Then look at the areas of your life, your own personal development. And in each segment, look at it and say, how am I doing? How are my relationships? My connections with my spouse, my kids, the significant people in my life. What am I giving back to the community? And so each area, you want to give yourself a rating and give this some serious thought. As you go through this, be totally open, totally honest, and really think about where you are right now in your life. Don't project out and say, well, at the end of 3 months or the end of a year, I'm going to be here. This is where you are right this very minute. So do this with total honesty. The only person that is going to hurt if you don't do this with total honesty is you. So what I want you to do right now is do the exercise. So press the pause button and go do it right now. Don't hit play again until you're totally done and everything is filled out. All right, welcome back. Now you've done the easy part. First, I just want you to look at your balance wheel. Imagine that you had 4 tires that looked like your balance wheel on a car called you. What would that ride be like? Would it be a little bumpy? Would you be, gosh, this is tough? Now, imagine the car was trying to get some speed up to get onto the freeway. And if you were on this car called you, headed towards the freeway, and you got some momentum going, not only would the ride be tough, but do you think you'd be heading for a blowout? See, this is where we can start looking at it and say, gosh, I probably need to make some adjustments in my lifestyle. Now, what I want to think about are the first two questions from the first video. What are your core values? And what is most important to you? Now, another way of asking that question is, what's most important to you is what is the legacy you want to leave behind? And as you think about your answer to those questions, ask yourself, is your current wheel of life a great reflection of the core values that you said you had? And is it a good reflection of the legacy you want to leave behind? Is it creating the impact, the life that you really want? The first time I did the balance wheel exercise, I have to say it was not a very good reflection of what I said my core values were and what I said was important to me. Let's take the core value of physical health. I bet most of you have a desire for vibrant health. You want high energy, and you want a body that you can enjoy being in. Now, looking at your balance wheel, if your health is not where you want it to be, ask yourself, why not? The first time I did this with Jim, he asked me to think about my core values. And he said, Greg, your true core values are reflected in your actions. And he said, Greg, do you think your core values are reflected in what this balance wheel says about you right now? And I have to say, it was not. And when I realized my core values were not reflected on my balance wheel, I started to see why I was having some problems. Jim looked at me and said, Greg, I really believe that your balance wheel is an actual reflection of the values you've been living by in the past. He said, we've all heard the law of sowing and reaping. The law says that you will reap what you sow. But Jim said, another way to think about this law is this. He says, what you are currently reaping is what you've sown in the past. And Jim said, Greg, your balance wheel, these are your life, are reflection of what you've sown in those areas of your life in your past. Now, once I really understood this, it started to make a huge difference for me. Jim said, Greg, it's really important to think about this. He asked me, Greg, do you think you can make a difference in how your future turns out? And I said, well, of course I can. He said, well, Greg, if you really believe you can make a difference in how your future turns out, that means you're responsible for your future. But it also means that you're responsible for how your life currently ended up here. He said, so many of us look at the past and say, well, that was because my ex-wife, because of this, because of that. And we judge that, but we want to take and have control of the future. He says, either you have control of both the future and the past, or you don't. And he said, I want you to really understand this. He said, this is why it's so important to look at where we currently are, and then look back and say, okay, what got me here? What were the values? What were the things? What were the decisions that drove me to make the decisions that now ended up in this particular place? Jim went on to say that the problem is that most people are not thinking about what they are sowing each day. The demands of life are always pulling at us, and unless we take the time to step back every now and then and consciously think about the direction of our lives, we will find that the life we want is not the life we're going to end up with. Jim said, if you really want to get the life of our dreams, you have to get very clear on what your core values are. He said, we always have to be thinking about four things. He said we need to be thinking about cause and effect and direction and destination. Most of us don't want to look at the parts of our lives that are not working and really ask, what's the cause of this? What has created it? But he said wise people, sophisticated people, are always looking at that relationship between cause and effect. They are always asking, what is the direction I am headed in? And what's the end destination of taking those current actions? Where is it taking me in the long run? Jim looked at me and said, Greg, let's start with something that is very easy to understand. He said, Greg, in the last couple of years, have you put on any weight? Now, when he asked me that question, I had just gone through a divorce about 18 months before. I was a little depressed. I'd been stressed out. And I think he knew I'd put on a little weight. I said, well, yeah, Jim, I have put on an extra 5 to 7 pounds a year over the last couple of years. He said, great. Let's say you put on 5 pounds a year for the next 10 years. Now, if you do the math, you'd be carrying around an extra 50 pounds of fat with you every day. Is that right? I said, well, yes. He said, what do you think the impact of carrying 50 extra pounds of fat around are on your heart? I said, well, Jim, I don't think it would be that good. He said, well, Greg, do you think that's going to take time off your life? I said, well, I suppose. Then he said, well, Greg, what do you think the impact of carrying 50 extra pounds of fat around would be on your energy level? I said, well, it's not that good. He said, well, how much do you think it was going to cost you? 10%, 20%? I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, what do you think the impact of carrying around 50 extra pounds of fat would be on your self-esteem, on the way you perceived yourself? And he systematically got me to look about this. Now, as Jim was going through this and I started realizing, gosh, I had not been thinking about the impact, I said, Jim, I get the point. He said, Greg, see, I don't really think you have gotten the point. When I ask these types of questions, it makes most people uncomfortable, so they avoid them. But if you really want to live the life of your dreams, you have to be willing to think this through. You have to think about, where is my current plan taking me? And he said, we have to start by looking at our balance wheel and now think, okay, what got me here? And now we can start looking about where we're going. This is the cause, effect, direction, and destination of all of our actions. Now, he said, Greg, I want to think about it. Just in this little discussion that we've had about the impact of carrying or taking and just putting on 5 extra pounds a year, and the impacts it's going to have 5, 10, 15, 20 years down your life. He says, do you think it's going to be easier for you when you leave here today to pass if you're tempted on a snack, or pass on going to the gym? Or do you think you're going to be more likely or less likely? I said, well, I'm probably going to be more likely to go to the gym. He said, I already want to go. I want to eat healthier. He said, see, by thinking about the direction and the destination, it's easier to bring things back. But if we don't keep that in focus, if we just think about today, it's easy to fall into the trap of making poor choices. Because in our brains, it says it doesn't really seem to matter. And he said, what we have to do is bring the future into the present. And the best way to do that is look at where we currently are, and now look at it in relationship to the past. And I will tell you, as I thought about this, I looked at my relationships and I thought about the things that I had done that had ended up costing me a divorce. And I realized it's true. So many people say they want to be healthy or have a better marriage or that they really want to make a difference in the world, but given the opportunity to work on their marriage or go to the gym or truly make a difference, donate some time to a cause, they say, well, you don't understand. There's a basketball game. There's a party. And they opt for the party or the basketball game or the television almost every single time. Now, Jim said, Greg, I don't ever want you to judge people. He said there's nothing wrong with having a core value of partying all the time. But he says if that's your core value, then you need to make sure that when you're setting your goals, you don't set a lot of goals that require you to go out and work. He says you need to make sure that what you are really wanting is where you're headed. And I started thinking about this, and I will tell you, I don't think I fully understood the impact of this that first meeting. But as the years have gone by, this is so profound. It makes such a huge difference once you really understand this. Then Jim asked me a rather sobering question. He said, Greg, as you look at your wheel of life, if you repeated the same things you did last year in this area of your life, where do you think it would take you in 10 years? And he got me to look at every single one of those things and project it out 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And it was an incredibly sobering process. He said, Greg, if you saved and invested the same amount of money towards your long-term retirement as you did last year, and you did that for the next 10 years, would you be financially independent? Would it take you the direction you wanted to go? I said, well, not really. He said, well, if you invested the same amount of time that you did last year, working on your relationships with the significant people in your life, and you did that same amount of input every year for the next 10 years, would your relationships be better or worse? I said, well, he said, think about your health. If you maintain the same diet, if you exercise the same amount, how would you rate your health plan? Where would it take you 5, 10, 15 years down the road? I said, well, I went through a divorce. I had this challenge and this challenge, and I tried to justify it. He said, well, when would you like that to stop? He said, you have to decide when to take responsibility. When I did this exercise for the first time, I said, well, Jim, it looks like the only thing that I'm really making progress in is my career path. And Jim said, well, Greg, that's fairly common, but it is also why so many people seem to succeed financially, but end up very unhappy with their lives. Jim said that this is why when you're setting your goals, you've got to look at your whole life. He said, because in the end, if you only succeed financially, you only succeed in your career, and you lose your relationships, your health, making a difference, a contribution, you are going to be incredibly unhappy. And you're going to lose it all anyway. So make sure you're thinking about your whole life as you set goals. And once you understand this, it does change everything. Doing this Wheel of Life exercise helps us remember that we have to think about our whole life. The trap is that we all fall into this thinking, gosh, once I've made X number of dollars, or I've taken my business to this level, or sales to this level, or I've done this, or I have accomplished this project, then I'll focus on my relationships. Then I'll exercise more. Then I'll take care of my health. The reality is it doesn't work that way. As you go down your path, you are instilling habits and expectations. Every day, you're developing this habit of what you're doing. And the longer you stay going down the path, the harder it becomes to change those habits. And that's why every year it's so important to take the time to look at your balance wheel. Ask, what got me here in this past year? And now, where do I want to go in the year ahead? At the beginning of the year, we all set goals with great intentions. But because we don't go to work on changing our habits, don't think about the cause and effect, we don't end up making the changes we say we want to make. We say, gosh, I want to improve my marriage. But then we don't go to work at spending time with our spouse in a meaningful way. We don't read books on it. We don't go to a seminar on it. I was fortunate enough to go to work for Jim early on in my life. And the 2 years that I worked for him changed everything for me. Because Jim was relentless at getting you to think about these things. Over the 35 years since then, I've shared so much of what I've learned from Jim with people in my companies. People who have attended my seminars or heard me speak or taken one of my online training programs. And I've kept reading and refining all the research about goal setting and accomplishment. I've taken what Jim taught me and over the years refined it into the creation of what I call my 5-step goal accomplishment program. It's a program on how to set and achieve your goals. And it is so systematic. I will tell you more about it tomorrow in the final video of this series. But to complete today, I want to think about your balance wheel and think about the one area of your life that you are most committed to making a change in 2016. Then do me a favor, leave a comment about your major takeaway from this video. Or if you are really committed to changing, leave me a comment that clearly outlines what the consequences of not making the changes in the area that you really want to change on your life. Say, if you keep doing whatever it is in this area, where will that take you 5, 10 years? And give me a clear description. It will inspire me that I have actually touched somebody, that you're making a difference, and I know that alone will start helping you change your behavior. Now, if you know of someone that you think would benefit from this information, please share this video on your favorite social media, or enter their name in the email below and we'll send them a link to this video. I want you to know I really do appreciate your time, your attention in watching these videos, and I hope this balance wheel has gotten you to think about where you are in your life, the cause and effect that your current actions are having, thinking about the direction of what your current path or where the current path is taking you. Little things like this will make such a huge difference. Take the time to really think about what we've talked about. Please leave me a comment, and we'll see you on the video tomorrow.